he has never been a very unifying figure. This has never been part of his repertoire. And we saw during his first administration, whenever there was a tragedy or a crisis, whenever there was what might hypothetically have been an opportunity to bring people together, he generally declined to take it. And a lot of people around him would say this is what people voted for. They voted for someone who was going to be energetic and pull no punches.
So President Trump's attack on his political opponents, his Democratic Party predecessors in the White House, and on the policy of diversity in hiring at the Federal Aviation Authority, which he blamed for a significant fall in standards of safety, that was sustained. It was fierce. I wonder what you think about that. Let's get the thoughts of Molly Ball now, who's a senior writer, political writer at the Wall Street Journal. Hello to you, Molly.
Hi, John. Great to be here.
Good to have you, Molly, as always. Just tell me, what did you make of what you were hearing?
Well, the president did not take pains to avoid politicizing this tragedy, that's for sure. It's pretty familiar, actually, I think, for those of us who are here for Trump's first administration or anyone who has seen him in action before. He has never hesitated to sort of wade into these things with both feet and cast blame. Some of the things he's citing are real. There is an ongoing debate about diversity standards at the FAA. There's a lawsuit, but there's no indication that that had anything to do with this crash or even that the air traffic controller was at fault. And you heard other members of the administration in that same press conference saying that, there'll be an investigation. It will be a speedy investigation. We'll get to the bottom of this. But as of this point, less than 24 hours after this horrific tragedy happened, in which we believe 67 people have died, many of them figure skaters who were on their way to a competition. These families are just starting to absorb the shock of that. And we don't actually know why it happened. We don't actually know what caused the crash, but that hasn't stopped President Trump, as it never has, from seeking someone to blame.
Yeah, I mean, there's clearly all, Molly, very pertinent points. And as we've discussed so many times before, I mean, your country, America, is such a polarized society in political terms and in social terms, and you're talking about a president here, a re-elected president who sets very much his own rules when it comes to the way that he plays his role. I suppose, Moni, we can only guess at this stage how what we've heard today from the White House podium will go down with those grieving relatives, because they would normally be at the very forefront of any discussion about this.
Yeah, I think that's right. They're the ones who ought to be able to say what this all means. They're the ones who have to deal with this horrendous loss. And again, I think it's important to note that many of the things that the president was saying are either not true or we don't know if they will turn out to be true. The diversity standards that he was talking about predate the Biden administration. And as one questioner in the press conference noted, they were not undone by the first Trump administration. They remained in place. So he had a chance to solve this problem if he wanted to, and didn't seem to think it was important enough in his first term. And there are also questions being raised about other potential failures in the system.
Yes.
Senators have been raising concerns for many years about just the amount of air traffic in and out of Reagan National Airport. It is a very congested airspace with a lot of security considerations, given the proximity to, the White House, the Pentagon, the CIA, multiple military bases. Did Congress allow them to operate too many flights in this very crowded airspace? Did that have something to do with it? There's all kinds of, and then, this is a new administration. They've only been in place for less than 2 weeks. But one of the first things that Trump did was dismiss the heads of the Federal Aviation Administration, which oversees air traffic control, as well as other agencies involved, So I think there are going to be questions about just what kind of oversight was in place. But the most important thing, as you said, I think, is focusing on those families who have lost their loved ones and
Yes.
trying to find out what actually happened, not just who could potentially be blamed if you
Yes.
wanted to.
And trying to find out what actually happened is going to be the job, isn't it, of a multi-agency investigation and a very formalised form of inquiry, which will take a good length of time. And the evidence before that inquiry will be put together painstakingly before anything like conclusions are put together. Now, that will be, in the end, I suppose, from the point of view of many of those listening and those who are missing their loved ones who died in this crash, those will be the conclusions that matter a very great deal. But I suppose it is also worth noting, Molly, that what we've heard from the President of the United States today does not make that process any easier.
Well, look, he has never been a very unifying figure. This has never been part of his repertoire. And we saw during his first administration, whenever there was a tragedy or a crisis, whenever there was what might hypothetically have been an opportunity to bring people together, he generally declined to take it. And a lot of people around him would say this is what people voted for. They voted for someone who was going to be energetic and pull no punches and not do the politically correct thing, but point out the people who need to be blamed when that's the case. So it's very much in keeping with the Trump who we have known now for a decade as a divisive and polarizing figure, and certainly the vote in the last election indicated that there's an appetite for that. So it's going to be interesting, I think, to see, given that we are still in what's considered the sort of honeymoon period for a new administration, there's a feeling in Washington that Trump is burning through his political capital very quickly with this and with all of the aggressive executive actions that he's taken on numerous policy fronts, some of which they've already had to walk back. Some of his most controversial cabinet nominees are undergoing confirmation hearings on Capitol Hill today. So I think the potential consequences for the rest of Trump's agenda are that he begins to lose support, not only among the public, but among the people that he needs as allies in the legislature.
Okay, Molly Ball, senior correspondent at the Wall Street Journal. As always, so grateful for your perspective and analysis, Molly.
It was a dark and excruciating night in our nation's capital and in our nation's history, and a tragedy of terrible proportions. As one nation, we grieve for every precious soul that has been taken from us so suddenly. And we are a country of, really, we are in mourning. This has really shaken a lot of people, including people, very sadly, from other nations who were on the flight. For the family members back in Wichita, Kansas, here in Washington, D.C., and throughout the United States, and in Russia, we have a Russia contingent of very talented people. Unfortunately, we're on that plane. Very, very, very sorry about that. Whose loved ones were aboard the passenger jet. We can only begin to imagine the agony that you're all feeling. Nothing worse. On behalf of the First Lady, myself, and 340 million Americans, our hearts are shattered alongside yours, and our prayers are with you now. And in the days to come, we'll be working very, very diligently in the days to come. We're here for you to wipe away the tears and to offer you our devotion, our love, and our support. There's great support. In moments like this, the differences between Americans fade to nothing compared to the bonds of affection and loyalty that unite us all, both as Americans and even as nations. We are one family, and today we are all heartbroken. We're all searching for answers. That icy Potomac, it was a cold, cold night, cold water. We're all overcome with the grief for many who have so tragically perished, will no longer be with us. Together we take solace in the knowledge that their journey ended not in the cold waters of the Potomac, but in the warm embrace of a loving God.